Ministry about this issue and waiting for a response. Every day the Foreign Ministry gives a briefing to international journalists around 5 p.m. Eastern Time in Australia, and we're hoping that they may address the issue during that.
Okay, Mazoe Ford, thank you. Time for the day's finance now. Here's David Chow.
Westpac has agreed to pay a record $1.3 billion fine for breaking Australia's money laundering laws 23 million times. Westpac failed to properly keep track of international transactions, which, according to the financial crimes regulator AUSTRAC, left law enforcement agencies without crucial information in their criminal investigations. AUSTRAC says the breaches also include suspicious payments used to fund child sex abuse material from Southeast Asia. This scandal, which erupted late last year, forced Westpac's CEO at the time, Brian Hartzer, and its then chairman, Lindsay Maxted, to quit their top jobs. Now let's see how Westpac's $1.3 billion fine compares with other companies which breached money laundering laws. It's essentially double what Commonwealth Bank paid in 2018. So CBA's so-called smart ATMs were being used by criminals to deposit huge sums of money way above $10,000, and the regulator wasn't notified, and it paid a $700 million fine. And 3 years ago, the gambling company Tabcorp committed 108 breaches, and it was fined $45 million, which was a record at the time. Now, taking a look at the market reaction, Westpac shares fell sharply when the day began, but it managed to claw back nearly all of those losses, so it finished practically flat. NAB was also sold down, but managed to post a small gain. The buy now, pay later companies were hit hardest, the likes of Afterpay and Zipco. Gold miners like Perseus Mining also did poorly, but Kathmandu shares have jumped as investors bought the dip. Yesterday, the retailer's share price tanked after it reported an 86% drop in full-year profit. Nearly every sector finished lower today, but the heaviest losses were felt by the tech sector, and it came after a bad day on US markets. The NASDAQ index in particular dropped by a steep 3% as big tech names like Tesla, Apple and Amazon were heavily sold off. So that tech sell-off spread to the Australian market. In the end, the ASX 200 closed 0.8% lower, while the All Ords did a little worse, down almost 1%. But still, it was a big improvement over its heavy losses when the market opened. And in currencies, the Australian dollar has continued to slide on growing expectations the Reserve Bank will cut interest rates in just under 2 weeks. It's down to 70.3 US cents, its lowest level in 2 months. And it's a big slide when you consider the fact that the Aussie dollar was fetching above 73 US cents this time last week. And in commodities, the price of gold has dropped sharply to $1,851 US an ounce, and oil prices are a bit mixed, with West Texas crude below 40 US per barrel. And that's the latest in finance news.
And in reaction to Westpac's penalty, the Attorney General, Christian Porter, says the bank's failures have exposed Australia to serious white-collar and international crime.
If it is approved by the court, that will be the biggest corporate penalty ever in Australia's history. It obviously reflects very significant, serious and systemic failures on behalf of Westpac's compliance regime. That bank has now admitted to 23 million breaches of the counter money laundering and counter terrorism financing laws, which included failing to report international funds transfers worth more than $11 billion. Now, as many people are already aware, some of those international funds transfers have been directly linked to the alleged facilitation or funding of child exploitation material in foreign countries. And the failures on Westpac's behalf have also exposed Australia's financial system and therefore our community to serious crimes, including tax offences, money laundering and potentially terrorism financing. So this $1.3 billion, I think, can be seen as recognising an acceptance, at least by Westpac, of responsibility for its failings, but also as evidence in a statement that it's provided to the stock exchange today, an acceptance of the incredible seriousness of those failures in terms of their potential impact to the Australian community.
The head of the National Disaster Bushfire Recovery Agency has told the Royal Commission that some bushfire-affected residents are only now coming forward to ask for help. Philippa McDonald has more.
Andrew Colvin, who's been giving evidence at the Royal Commission, has said that only now are people coming forward for help. He described the recovery efforts as a marathon, that people are still shocked and traumatised. They've been going it alone in some cases, and now they've hit a wall almost a year after the bushfires started, and they are asking for assistance from the government and from the not-for-profit sector. Now, he gave an overview on how recovery is going. Almost 300,000 people have received some monetary help. 26,000 grants have been made to primary producers and businesses. And he said such is the trauma and the shock that there are a growing number of calls to Lifeline, in excess of 1,700 each week, and another 600 people are seeing medical professionals or having telehealth with medical professionals for their trauma. He said the sentiment at the moment is of fatigue and anxiety about the coming season. This is a little bit more of what he had to say.
We're seeing an overwhelming sentiment of anxiety as we approach another high-risk weather season, of course. And as I said before, we're seeing an absolute focus on recovery having to be at the pace of individuals.
And Philippa, who else has given evidence today?
Kirsten, we've heard from the Secretary of the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, Philip Gagens. He's talked about how, with disasters forecast to be more frequent and more intense, the Commonwealth Government should take more of a lead. It should be given greater powers, and that would send a big signal to the community of an impending crisis. He says that the states should refer their powers so the Commonwealth would be empowered to declare a state of national emergency. And the Royal Commission, Kirsten, wraps up tomorrow.
The Disability Royal Commission has heard emotional testimony about a 13-year ordeal an autistic